And also this is one of those areas. So that's that in terms of traffic this early morning. Our focus just to be on what has been happening along Mombasa Road. Now it is time for our first conversation of the day. We want to talk about matters health, diet, before, during and after COVID-19. Joining me live, Dr. Yubrin, as a senior physician at Mpisha Hospital. Dr. good morning.
Good morning.
All right, let's just get right into it. Before we go to the whole health aspect of it, first of all, when we talk about immune system, what exactly do we mean? Make us understand.
So the immune system is a complete sort of ammunition that exists in the human body. And it starts right from the blood cells of human beings, where you have some specific cells that are the sort of army. But the immune system in general is very vast, where you have right from the blood cells, there are some organs like the spleen, there's some organs called lymph nodes, even the skin acting as a barrier. So it's an array of what prevents a particular infection or infestation from getting into the human body. So the immune system in this regard, then a lot of people like to refer to it as just what exists in the blood, but it's an array right from your skin acting as a barrier, so that you have a primary immune response to a secondary one in that regard.
Let's get into the whole health diet, starting with before, during COVID-19. First of all, from your perspective as a doctor, when you talk about a healthy, balanced diet, what does it need to comprise of?
So a healthy, balanced diet has to have a complete composition of all the nutrients that the body requires. In this case, you have your carbohydrates, you have your proteins, you have your starch, which is, part of still the carbohydrates, and you have your vitamins, and you have all the necessary nutrients and micronutrients that are required. So in this case, you have starch, which in the Kenyan setup, a lot of people would say it's ugali or rice, and then you have proteins, which can be beans or meat or any legumes that you have. And then you have your green vegetables, which tend to have a lot of your vitamins and the minerals. And then you have fruits also that also substitute into your provision of minerals. And they do also have some sugars that give calories to the human body. So it's a complete, if you are to divide a plate, then the plate will have to have they'll have to have 4 components that are very important, in addition to which a lot of people would say, if you're lucky enough, you live in the 15% of Kenyans, you'll have a snack or a fruit by your side. But for a lot of Kenyans, it will be just the mboga and ugali. And if you're lucky, if you have meat. So most of Kenyans, let's say up to 70% of Kenyans, normally don't have a balanced diet.
Now, speaking of mboga and ugali, Doctor, you know of those Kenyans that the bigger portion is the carbohydrate or, that ugali compared to the vegetable. What are your thoughts in regards to this? What would you say to such Kenyans?
So, Doreen,
yeah.
I would recommend that we have a balanced diet. But again, when we look at health, we have to bring in the socio-economic aspect, which plays a very big role. I know a lot of people would wish to have that. A lot of people, I think, consider having a balanced diet good living. But the accessibility issue then brings in a problem. But I think even in the context of what you can afford, you can still be able to have a balanced diet, so that if you're having mboga and ugali, your ugali is supposed to just, your mboga is supposed to occupy half of your plate. Your ugali is supposed to occupy a quarter of your plate. And this, we are talking about a flat, normal, standard size plate, not a big sinia that can occupy the whole table. And then an eighth is supposed to compose, a quarter is supposed to compose your starch, as I said. And then the other quarter remaining, which is an eighth, will have your protein. And then the other eighth will have your fruit or whatever additional thing you're having. Maybe you're having some nuts or something, which still are proteins. But then the other eighth is supposed to be composing what will give you the other minerals that come from fruit. So, but standard Kenyan style is that the whole plate is made up of ugali, or rice, and then very little proteins, and then you end up having a lot of calories. And that's why we are seeing a lot of diseases like non-communicable diseases like cardiovascular diseases and diabetes being on the rise. And these are the same things in the context of COVID we are discussing and saying this predispose people to having worse outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
comes to COVID.
Okay. Now, talking about that socioeconomic imbalance, Dr. Now let's talk about those Kenyans that are losing, that have lost jobs, those that have to part way with half salaries, those Kenyans who are even in the informal setups that may not be able to afford this healthy balance there that you're talking to us about, given the kind of situation that we are in right now. So for such Kenyans, what kind of foods can they have, at least given the kind of socioeconomic status that they're coming from, but at least also to be able to have a healthy meal? What can it comprise of?
You know, protein, as you said, there's plant protein and animal protein. And protein is the biggest challenge for a lot of Kenyans. So, you know, we all think that it has to be meat or eggs, and those are not very accessible. But if you did beans, let's say, or you did cowpeas that still have some plant protein, I think the diet will still be balanced, so that you're not having ugali and mboga, but you're having half of your plate comprising of mboga, then a quarter has your starch. I mean, a quarter has your protein, which will be mboga. I mean, in this case, it will be beans, and then an eighth will have your starch. So you see, and then you can have a fruit. I think a fruit can be accessible. In that case, then you're substituting, and you're learning to substitute foods that essentially would be available in other foods that we consider to be more better living, but still they are able to do the same job. So that you substitute, let's say, meat with beans, or you substitute eggs with some milk. But again, as Kenyans, we have to be cognizant of the fact that still even the beans and the milk is still not accessible. So improving really our citizens' economic status, I think that's where it starts from. If we eradicate poverty, we make sure there's employment, then we'll have a healthy nation, which starts from what we really eat. So, Doreen, it's a very interesting question you're asking me, but it boils down to the advocacy we can have on health. When we talk about health and we want people to be healthy, it boils down to the economic ability and social setup of a particular community or a particular individual or family. So it boils down to empowering our citizens and empowering our fellow Kenyans so that they can be able to purchase. But now you realize a lot of people have lost employment, as you say. So if people have lost employment, then how do they stay healthy to have a healthy immune status to make sure that they're keeping the virus at bay? So it becomes a vicious cycle of poverty breeds poverty, which breeds bad health, which breeds bad outcomes, and the cycle, as you can guess, is as right now what you're thinking.
All right, so what you're saying is that even for us to be able to achieve this healthy living, regardless of the social status, first of all, it has to start with proper empowerment.
Yes.
All right. Okay, now let's go to something a bit different. Now, our experts are now telling us that at least for us to keep healthy, to have a healthy body, especially during COVID-19, is that it is important for us to eat foods that boost our immunity. From your perspective, Dr. which kind of foods are this and how do they boost our immunity?
So, boosting immunity entails having a very well balanced diet, I would call it. Because there's no particular food that is superior to the other, just making sure the right portions are taken and you're having the right input into your body, and your body will take up what it needs. In terms of saying that if you took some particular foods only, then you're more protected from COVID, that is a lot of theory, and we don't have scientific evidence, scientific evidence that is saying, like what I've had a lot of myths, that if you take a lot of vitamin C, or you take a lot of, people are taking supplements to try and boost their immunity, that then you will be protected from the virus or you will be healthier. The body, interesting, God created us in a very, very interesting way, in his own way, that when you take in a particular nutrient, for example, the body will pick up what it needs and it will let what it doesn't need go. Unless you have some genetic or inborn acquired or any acquired conditions that make the absorption of a particular nutrient a problem. If you don't have any of that, the body will take what it needs and it will leave what it doesn't need to go. Let's say, for example, I've had a lot of, as I was saying, a lot of this around some minerals, and people are taking supplements and they're saying if you took more fruit. Really, bottom line, what I would tell Kenyans is you just ensure that you've taken a good balanced diet. And your immunity is affected by so many other factors besides just what you've eaten, such as, are you stressed? Because when you're stressed or you're anxious, your immunity is suppressed. Or if you're having any form of depression or anything that is affecting your mental well-being, your immunity is suppressed. If you have any other conditions that suppress your immunity, then you're at risk. So really, there is no blanket intake of particular nutrients or anything like that that will make you, will quote unquote, make your immunity more alarmed or more aware, so that it keeps away the virus. Eating a balanced diet is what we want to preach to our fellow Kenyans, that make sure your meal is well balanced, you're exercising to keep your immune awake and better in terms of functioning, so that you're able to be healthy.
Okay, and just remind our viewers that I'm speaking to Dr. Yubrin Moraa on matters health diet before, during, and after COVID-19. We are still on the health diet before COVID-19. This is for someone who is still healthy. Now, Dr. Let's talk about physical activities and exercise. How does this help an individual's body?
So, you know, when you exercise, you make sure that there's good circulation. And we say some of the immune cells are in blood. They're circulating in blood, the white blood cells, and I don't want to use a lot of medical jargon, but their white blood cells that really fight infections.
Yeah.
There are also some chemicals that are circulating in blood that make sure that they're keeping away viruses and bacteria. So when you exercise, what you do is you ensure there's good circulation. And besides that, you also burn bad chemicals that are supposed to really, they contribute to suppression of your immunity. The other thing is you keep lean, and you keep making sure that your BMI or your body mass index is within the required range. And in that way, then you're also keeping at bay other diseases that would come and make your immunity weak. So exercise in general is such a feel-good thing, and even mental health contributes to it, so that your mental well-being is good, and that boosts your immunity. The body is like a factory. When it is clean and when it is the machines are up and running, it does a perfect job. So think about it like a machine in a factory. When you're servicing it well, and when you're making sure that all the soot is removed, then it does a better job. Essentially, that's how the same analogy I would use for the immune system and exercise. So exercise does make sure that it keeps away bad diseases that would suppress your immunity. And the other thing is it would make sure that there's good, adequate circulation, and your alert and your mental well-being is good, which is always thumbs up for your immune system. And your immune system is alert and will respond adequately and as quick and swift as required.
Okay. Sorry. Now for this individual who is healthy but just wants to prevent him or herself from contracting diseases, which kind of physical activities or exercise would you recommend?
Really, there's no particular one, but what needs to happen is that you need to make sure you exercise for 30 minutes minimum. And what I say, like, the easiest thing is to brisk walk. Brisk walking, meaning you walk very fast until you sweat. So brisk walking for a minimum of 30 minutes in a day, 3 times a week. That is good enough. If you're able to do more, you can go ahead and do it, run up the hill, ride the bike, but make sure it is a minimum of 30 minutes and you're sweating, and it is 3 times a day, 3 times a week minimum, or more if you can.
Okay.
So that's what you should do. Some people will do swimming, others will do other things, but whatever you're doing, you have to make sure that you're sweating. It's not leisure walking. Like I see people saying, I'm taking a walk, and you just take a walk around your neighborhood, and then you say you really exercise. It has to be, you have actually to make your heart rate increase, and that way then you're burning calories and making sure there's adequate circulation.
Wow, so walking is also part of exercise. That's really quite interesting, and you should make sure that you're sweating while at it.
Yes, walking fast, brisk walking.
Okay, now, how about constant body hydrating? How does this help an individual in terms of boosting immunity, preventing oneself from contracting diseases? How does this help you as a person?
Come again, please?
Body hydrating, taking lots of water, how does this help an individual?
Okay, so when you take a lot of water, what happens is, one, you're not a lot, and I want to correct my language there, that it's not taking a lot of water. It is making sure you're well hydrated, which is minimum, a maximum is 2 liters a day for a lot of standard body size people. When Someone is bigger, maybe 2.5 liters. But when you take adequate, and when you ensure you have good adequate hydration, is you're ensuring that there's good cleaning up of toxin. In this case, you know, the water goes to the kidney, then it cleans up, and your kidney health is good, really. So the focus here mostly is on your kidney health. Your kidney health will be good, and as I said, having kidney disease of any form does predispose someone to having a weak immunity, because the kidney's job is to clean up stuff. So when it's removing excreted stuff or chemicals from the body, then it's removing things that might potentially suppress the immunity. And so your kidney health ensures that your immunity is good and your general well-being is good. So yes, water ensures that your kidney is functioning well, you're removing out. And we say don't overdo it because there are other factors like some salts in blood, and in medical lingua we say some electrolytes, that if you take too much water, then it's going to affect the amount of those electrolytes or salts in your body, and it will dilute them and it can bring problems. So let's not overdo the water. And when you feel thirsty, you take your water, and if you're doing water, you do a maximum of 2 liters a day.
Okay, so let's not overdo the water for those that love taking water a lot. Now, there are those individuals that follow these guides. They take the right foods, healthy meals, take foods that boost their immunity, but still end up contracting diseases and even contracting COVID-19. What could be the problem with such individuals?
So remember, we say these are measures you're putting to mitigate, and they are not bulletproof. So you just reduce the risk. You don't eliminate the risk. So the risk can be there. But remember that, or are not observing the other, you won't, Doreen, you can't have someone say that I exercise well, I eat well,
yeah.
I make sure I'm drinking, I'm well hydrated, I am not stressed, and I'm having correct information, no anxiety existing. And then they say they won't wear the mask correctly, they won't observe social distancing, they won't wash their hands, and then they say that they expect not to get the virus. You have to put all measures together for you to culminatively then say that you are reducing your risk, but you're not immune, or you're not, I want to use the correct word, you're not completely eliminating the risk, you're reducing the risk. So reducing the risk is what we want all Kenyans to do. And part of it is also observing all the guidelines that the government has put into place that are supposed to mitigate acquisition of this virus.
All right. Now, let's come to the next part of our discussion. This is now health diet during COVID-19. So now this is an individual who already has the virus. When you talk about healthy eating and healthy diet, which kinds of foods does this person need to take? This is someone who already has the virus.
Okay, someone who has the virus, one, I'm assuming in this case we're discussing a home-based care kind of patient, because the others are in the hospital, they'll be taken care of. So someone who is at home and they're isolating, remember the effects of the isolation and the virus itself. So someone is isolated, they're depressed, obviously, they're feeling anxious, they're scared, they're not able to interact with their family members. So all those things are at play. So when we say diet, I think we start right from making sure they're well hydrated. We are providing them with clean water. And the other thing is we make sure that they are comfortable, and we're giving them emotional support, even when we are not interacting with them in their own isolation. And then besides that is to also make sure that this person, as they're in there, they're having their major meals provided for them, well balanced. As we said earlier on, really there's no magic that if they take this much, but these patients will tend to because of the infection, they'll get thirsty more. So their fluid intake might increase because the body is demanding for more. So they'll tell you they're feeling more thirsty because one, they have an infection, or maybe they have a fever. So you provide them with the adequate water. I mean, fluid in this case, if they want, because you don't really have to take water, you could take fluid in another form, like you want juice or something like that. So, and then making sure that they have their 3 major meals and they snack in between, because when you have an infection, your caloric intake goes up. So they will require more of the food. So if they have their breakfast, and they'll have a snack at some point, and they have lunch. But in that context, you make sure that the plate, as we talked earlier, Doreen, that it's well balanced.
Yes.
So that half is your vegetables, a quarter is your protein, then an 1/8 is your starch, and then you have your fruit. and per required. If they request that, can you give me a piece of banana, please offer them with that. So good nutrition and good caloric intake and good micronutrients and vitamins provision is very paramount, because the demand goes up when anyone has infections, especially viral infections and even bacterial infections in this.
Okay.
So we provide them with the major meals and ensure that they are also emotionally and socially supported.
All right. So good nutrition, good calorie intake is the way to go. But you also mentioned something very important, that they also need a snack. So for someone who has COVID-19, which is the best kind of healthy snack for this kind of person?
Fruits are the best healthy snacks for them. Let's avoid refined sugar stuff where we are doing crisps and cakes and all those things. We give them healthy snacks, which healthy snacks are normally fruits. So fruits are a good way for them.
Okay. Now, let's talk about the two categories of proteins. This is the animal protein or the plant-based protein. Now, for someone, again, who has COVID-19, which one will best suit them? Is it the poultry or fish when it comes to animal protein, or the cowpeas, the beans, the green grams? Which one is good for someone who has COVID-19? Because, again, also we know that their immunity is quite low.
So essentially, the proteins really, we can't say there's a big difference unless they have other things like elevated uric acid, which would say that, they need to then not take red meat. But generally, I think also being very fair to the social context we are discussing this in, is that the available protein is what should be provided to them, unless they have other underlying conditions, like let's say they have elevated uric acid in blood that requires them to take more of the plant protein and less of the animal protein, especially the red meat. So in this regard, as I am trying to really highlight, Doreen, is that what we have is what we use. And a lot of patients, we encourage that you take what is in the context of what can be provided in your social setup, but then ensure that you're taking the right quantities. But again, I have to admit that white meat is better than red meat. Yeah, a lot of science and a lot of papers came out discussing and highlighting that red meat does predispose to other things, although there is still a lot of conflicting science around it. But generally, the scientific community now agrees to the fact that white meat is better. But as I am trying to highlight, that we make sure that what we have is what we, if it's beans available, please let's not put a lot of pressure and say we have to get the white meat because that's what is going to make me get better or boost my immunity. Your immune cells, earlier on, I think I should have mentioned, are made up of protein. Yeah. And the protein that when it gets into your blood, when it gets into your body and you've taken it, the body knows how to convert it into what it needs in terms of protein, which is either the albumin or the immune cells or the immune antibodies that are made out of protein. That shall be done by your body. Your body is able to convert whatever it is into what it needs.
Okay, now that's really fair enough. And except the sugars that you mentioned, which other kinds of foods do they need to totally avoid?
I think there's a very thin line, and this is a novel virus. We really don't know which kinds of food will make things worse. But I think the most important thing is to avoid carbonated things, like soda, and I'm not going to mention names, but soda, carbonated things, refined sugars. Avoid alcohol. No alcohol.
Avoid alcohol totally.
Totally. Okay. No alcohol. And also making sure that if they were smoking, they have to stop smoking. Those are things that really mess up with the immunity by making the body not be able to carry enough oxygen. And that is required when the body is fighting diseases. So no smoking, no alcohol, avoid carbonated drinks and snacks that are high refined sugars, right, from sweets and cakes and all those things, so that your immunity and your body, your sugar level is not shooting up to bring out defects in the way the immune response is able to respond.
Wow, I like that you've clarified that avoid alcohol totally, especially if you have the COVID-19 virus. Now, Dr. I want us to move to the next category. Now, this is healthy eating after COVID-19. This is even for people that have recovered from this virus. But before we get to do that, I want you to talk to us briefly about this immunity boosters food, which is just categorized in terms of garlic, ginger, and lemons. There are so many. There are a lot of them in the market, especially right now, being sold by every vendor. And some Kenyans just saying that if I take this, then I don't need to do anything extra. A concoction of this is good to go. Maybe you can just explain to us this immunity boosters, the garlic, ginger, lemon, very briefly, how do they work? How do they help us as individuals in terms of strengthening our bodies?
One, Doreen, let me admit that's a serious marketing gimmick. And we should discourage it because we are misinforming our fellow citizens.
Okay.
There is no benefit scientifically that has been shown that if you take lemons, if you take ginger, if you take some concoction of the two, you're going to be immune to COVID-19. Maybe to just take it back and make people understand why we are saying so is because COVID-19 is a virus. So viruses get into the cells because they use some form of entry, like gets. I would call them in medical lingua, they're called receptors. They get in. And they need an access, right? And ginger or lemon or garlic will not stop the access gate. Ginger will not stand at the gate of that receptor or that gate that the virus has to use to get in. To stop it will not happen. What stops that and what stands at the gate is your immune cells. Yes? So your immune cells, and remember, even before your immune cells get there, there are these other measures we put in place to make sure the virus does not even get to the gate.
Yes.
So, having said that, so the ginger, garlic, and all that, if you're cooking with them, please go ahead and do that. You know, you're taking them. Don't take them in excess in the hope that it's going to protect you from COVID. It will not. But what it will do is, if there are any nutrients it will add into. If you don't have enough of them, as we speak, it will add it. I know, like garlic has some properties, antioxidant properties. If you don't have antioxidants, then garlic will help you. It will add into your antioxidants. So will ginger. And lemon, if you don't have enough vitamin C, it will help. But if you have enough, as I told you, the body will take what it needs. If it doesn't need it, it will just go to waste. So that's the highlight I want to emphasize today, that the body takes up what it needs. What it doesn't need, you're just wasting your time. So really, there's no scientific evidence about garlic or lemon or ginger, but if your body needs those antioxidants, the vitamin C that is in lemon, it will take them up, and yes, they will act as antioxidants in the body to ensure that there's a lot of stability if you don't have enough.
Wow, thank you so much for clarifying that, especially for our viewers and for those who are thinking that if I just take this concoction, then I'm good to go for me as an individual. But let us now look at something a bit different, where the WHO sounded an alarm that this crisis will worsen the burden of malnutrition, especially here in Africa, knowing the fact that we are already grappling with the issue of malnutrition as an African continent. So from your perspective as a doctor, how will this crisis further worsen that burden?
Wow, Doreen, this breaks my heart because it starts from that conversation that we had earlier, where I was telling you the economic impact of this virus.
Okay.
There are people losing their livelihood. There are people who are not able to farm because of falling sick. So the daily work day is lost. And the fact that people cannot input into the same things that they were able to do to get an economic benefit, all that has been lost. So remember, already as Africa, we were struggling with poverty and disease and malnutrition, as WHO has said. So right now, if we don't have the economic empowerment, and this virus is just starting to peak in our region, then we are going to see a lot of people out of their farms, a lot of people out of their jobs, a lot of people not being able to provide for their families. We are losing people who are breadwinners in different homes. Then the children and the family that was dependent on these people, they are not able then to access the required nutrition that they normally would get. And problem. So now the problem is being propagated further by all the economic, social, health, mental effects of COVID-19. So I think that's why WHO was able to, was quick to raise that that in the African setup, where already we had a struggle and we're trying to get rid of malnutrition, this situation is bound to get worse. And I think it's important for our government, different African governments and our Kenyan government, to make sure that even people in setups and underprivileged setups, they should be able to access meals for them to eat. Otherwise, the malnutrition, in the next few months, we're going to see more children with malnutrition because their parents can't get them food. People are starving, so kids will not be able to breastfeed. We're seeing more people losing their jobs. We're seeing more people not being able to buy the food because maybe the food is not accessible in a particular region, and this situation will get worse. And it's time that the government really took that up so that we avoid the long-term effects of malnutrition, which ranges from non-communicable diseases to death, to other things that later come in, like diabetes and high blood pressure.
Okay. So again, to be able to curb this issue of malnutrition, especially here in the African continent, it again boils down to empowerment.
Yes.
Okay. Now, let's look at the last category of persons. Now, these are the recovery cases. This is now healthy eating after COVID-19. And we best know that, especially for this kind of people, they probably do not have that appetite. So when you look at their plate and what they need to be eating, what are we looking at? And also, what kind of lifestyle do they need to be leading? Because these are people that have already recovered from the virus.
So, Doreen, I like that you're saying after COVID.
Yeah.
And before I even address that question, I'd like to tell you that one of the novel symptoms that we've discovered that COVID-19 does present with is that patients lose the sense of taste. So a colleague of mine the other day was telling me how he saw a patient who came and they said it's been like 2 weeks of losing weight. They're just losing weight. But then the clinician was quick to ask, why are you losing weight? Am I looking for a disease that is underlying, that has been there for so long, that is making you lose weight? But then when you interrogate further, this patient tells you that they've not been eating because they have lost the appetite. And loss of taste does cause someone to lose appetite. And so one symptom of COVID-19 is loss of the sense of taste and sense of smell for some people. But the loss of sense of taste does then contribute to them not being able to eat because they just feel like the food tastes weird, or they taste bad, or they can't even feel the taste of the food. They're not able to enjoy food, so they don't eat. Having said that, then, if someone has had COVID and they don't have the sense of taste, then their nutrition will be affected. It is something that clinicians across the country and the region who are managing COVID-19 patients are very aware of the fact that these patients don't like to eat. So we have to ensure when we are managing them that they are able to be provided with a balanced diet and told to eat small meals many times because they don't like eating. And this is because the virus does affect a center in the brain that is responsible for taste and smell. So they have to eat many meals. Like essentially, let's say, Doreen, if you took breakfast today and you took 1 egg and a slice of bread and a cup of tea and a fruit, you don't do that the same. You feel like you can't finish your meal. So it's okay to advise someone to still take that meal, but not have a big chunk of it at once, to spread it out so that they can eat. Then they take a 30-minute break, then they eat again, then they take another 1-hour break, then they eat again. Because one, they've had an infection, and after you've had an infection, because your caloric requirement goes up, then the body is burning more. So you need to replace what was lost. So really, it's a matter of comprehending that they don't really like to eat and balancing out, making sure their food is well balanced and spread out, because you still want them to achieve their daily requirements or the daily caloric, protein, mineral intake, but still in the context of they don't really like to eat. Sorry.
Okay. And now finally, as you wind up, Dr. Yubrin, do these people need to constantly be monitoring their bodies very quickly?
Yes, they need to be monitor your weight, obviously, so that you make sure that you're not becoming underweight or overweight. And then also just making sure that you monitor your body by how you feel, what you feel. If you feel like you're lethargic, you need to watch out on what you're eating. If you feel like you're not happy, it means we need to address your mental effect of the virus if you're infected or affected by it, so that we make sure your immunity is at all times, it is at its best alert. You're having a balanced diet, you're exercising, You're avoiding depression and anxiety by ensuring you have the right information about COVID during this pandemic, and making sure that we are a happy nation, because a happy nation makes sure that this person has good health, and good health is equals to wealth of the nation. So I think that will be my closing remarks, that good health is good wealth for the nation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yubrin, for your time.
Thank you so much.
All right. Now, this is that point where I just want to engage my colleague, Regina. Dr. says that good health is good wealth. What is your take, Reggie?
And I would say she just picked that from my mom's book on, just healthy living. She says that the best thing, that the most important thing for any individual is their health status. That you may have the wealth, you may have the money, you may have the education, but if you're not well physically, mentally, spiritually, then you have no wealth to speak of. So I totally agree with Dr. Yubrin there. And also, just Doreen, what she has said that, right now there was a meme that was going around when Kenya first confirmed its first case of COVID-19 that showed, a bowl of mixed herbs, the ginger, the lemon, the mwarubaini and such. And that stake was, COVID came to the wrong continent. Because now, as you see, right now, vendors are selling lemons and ginger and garlic everywhere. And I like what the good doctor has said, is that the body will only take that much that it requires. So do not overdo it. You're encouraged to take, fruits so that you can boost your immunity, courtesy of vitamin C, but do not overdo it, because the body can only pick so much what it needs. At this time of COVID, maybe the diet doesn't have to be that expensive, and I like what the doctor has said. You do not have to overstretch your already suppressed income to try and keep up with the diet. You can do the basics, provided you have your vitamins, your proteins, and your carbohydrates. And also I like that she said that we need to focus less on red meat and try and get substitutes in white meat. If you don't like chicken, you can opt for fish or pork, and even some areas people are taking rabbit. So do what you have to do to remain safe, because the status of your health is indeed your wealth. I agree, Doreen. I don't know what you have to say for yourself in that regard.
Speaking from what you're saying, Ray, this is especially in regards to those Kenyans who are living in the interior rural setups, in the informal settlements. Just what the doctor has said, especially when I asked her that question, what happens to those Kenyans who cannot afford this healthy, balanced meal that you're talking about, of the carbohydrate, protein, vitamins, and ensuring that you have also vegetables in play, because we are living at a time where people are losing their jobs. You're living at a time where people have to part way with half salaries. Are living at a time where Kenyans, especially those in the informal setups and even the interior rural setups, cannot cater for their own basic need. And when I talk about basic need, this is just in terms of a 3-course meal. Some have to just go to bed with only 1 meal a day. But that is what the doctor has just continued to emphasize there, that what you do not need to overstretch to have that healthy, balanced meat. Just what you can afford, at least, is good enough for you. And she has also clarified this issue of the concoction, which is what you've put so much into our minds. And she has so much say that we need to get proper, right, and legit information. The concoction, what you call the mixture of garlic, ginger, lemon, it's not that bad, but we should not take it in excess. And we should not put in our minds that when I take this, then I'm good to go. I don't need to follow any guidelines. I don't need to eat healthy. I don't need to exercise, that this is it. She has just clarified that we still need to ensure that we follow the right protocols, we follow the right guidelines, we still eat well, a healthy, balanced meal, we still exercise, because again, also exercising, physical activity is also good to our health. And also for those that love to take water all the time, she has just said that not in excess, everything just in moderation is the way to go and is good to go. And again, also for those that have recovered from COVID-19, there's also a right and proper meal for you. It is still just constituting of the right balanced meal, right balanced diet. And also one of the things that has really come out, which I just want again to reiterate for the benefit and for the interest of our viewers, is that fruits are really important. It is a time where we need to ensure that we take enough fruits. in our meal. So whatever you're taking for your meal, it's also important that you take fruits. That is just what we've been having that conversation there in terms of healthy diet, that is before, during and after COVID-19. We're living at a time where we need to ensure that at least we boost our immunity, we have our strengths, our strengths at least at par, even as you're continuing to battle with the COVID-19 pandemic. Ray?
Thank you very much for that take home from that interaction there, diet and nutrition in light of COVID-19. I hope that